So for people who are joining this live stream, this is an internal meeting looking through functions that have been experimental in previous versions of Wolfram Language, which we are trying to finish polishing and confirm can be made non-experimental to be a permanent feature of the language going forward. So we are starting with something in Geographics. Yeah, actually, this one is easy. I think Geo Image is in fine shape.
Yes, I think so. The connection to the external provider has worked well, and we have a number of users who requested extensions and things like that.
What kind of extensions?
Well, do you remember that we gave them 3,000 tiles per month for free?
Oh, yeah, right. All I mean, extensions of that kind, like they just want more.
Exactly, yes, extension of numbers. And for 12, there are a number of extensions to the function itself, like 5 new options. And we can have a look if you want in there.
Yeah, okay, but what's the default? The default type here is satellite, right?
Yes, indeed. The two main differences with respect to Geographics.
Why are we not? Sorry, why are we not saying that that's the default here? We should just say that in the documentation there.
It says under automatic.
Oh, yes. Okay, fair enough. What happens? I've never even tried some of these things. So if I do...
Sorry, we do say in the main definition box.
I see it. I see it. Satellite photograph. Okay, so let's see. If I say geo image of the Pentagon there, then I should get pure satellite imagery. What happens if I say... Okay, why did that do it at such a big zoom level? I don't think that's right. I think we should try to default, depending on the entity type, we should try a more sensible default.
Yes, this may be a case in which we don't have a size.
No, I was going to say we probably don't have a polygon.
Right.
I'm sure we don't have a polygon, but if it's a building entity, it's sure not, 10, 20 miles across or something.
So you want geo image of the Pentagon to be different from geo image of the Pentagon of position.
That's correct.
So if you, why don't you hardwire a zoom level there, like 16 or something like that?
Sure, I can do that, but let's try something else. If I say geo image of Liechtenstein, how do you spell Liechtenstein anyway? But well, let's do Andorra. Okay, so I'm assuming, I don't know why this is taking quite so long. By the way, do we want to give some kind of indicator of the fact that it's downloading stuff?
We could. It takes a bit longer to connect to Digital Globe than to connect to our own tile server.
I see. And that depends on the zoom level, what we're looking at.
Yes, so we have satellite imagery up to zoom 11, and from 12 onwards, we connect to Digital Globe.
Okay. And what am I seeing here with Andorra? If I want the outline of Andorra, what do I do?
It's in the middle of the mountains, well, of the Pyrenees. So Geo Image cannot superimpose a polygon. For that, you would have to call Geographics with a polygon of Andorra. And then you can.
So what happens if I say satellite with labels?
Yes, you will get some.
What the heck is that?
Why is it so small?
That is completely crummy.
Yeah, something went wrong there. It may be that that's the highest level that there is available for the labels. But I have to check that. That looks
okay.
Like
so I mean, but what if that's the case? We should be generating some. Okay,
some message. I have to check that.
I mean, this looks reasonable, right? Here's the outline of the country and everything.
Sure, but although the resolution of is not that great here. Why are those things not properly rendered with proper fonts and so on?
Well, this is the generic discussion of the resolution, both in Geographics and Geo Image, which is whether we give pixel to pixel results or not. And this affects both Geographics and Geo Image. So in order to be able to control that, there is now a new option.
This did the right thing. That's nice and crisp, right? Okay, so I was asking for a Geo Image, which is obviously a bitmap.
Right.
Whereas this is Geographics is the nice vector stuff, which looks good. Okay, so let's loop back. Actually, we have a couple of interesting questions on the live stream here. From Sando, we have a question: will Geographics understand aspect ratio? Apparently, in the present situation, it just stretches.
Well, try this. This is the sort of thing we have been changing recently. So try, yes, 1/2 or something like that. So
that looks good.
Yeah,
that looks good. That looks just fine. That's exactly what you want, isn't it?
Exactly, and it should work also in Geo Image. We have added this new A412.
Good.
It's also possible to specify raster size. So you can say in Geo Image, give me an image of...
What, by the way, that reddened for some reason.
Yes, it's very new.
Okay.
You can also say raster size goes to, and you say 600 by 300, which also controls the aspect ratio.
But what happens if I just give one raster size?
Yeah, remove the aspect ratio and just...
No, but I want to give one raster size here, and I want to see whether it still respects.
Yeah.
It does. So it treats that raster size as, what, the vertical raster size?
I think it's horizontal one.
Okay, fine.
And it deduces the vertical one. And you can now also specify separately the image size so that it does automatically what you did.
Yeah, okay, great. Looks great. Okay. Okay, we have another question on the live stream. Is there historic Geo Image data available? Do we know the answer to that?
Geo Image.
Geo Image.
So like satellite image, no, we don't have that. But we are working on allowing the GeoServer language to specify dates so that we can connect to NASA servers, etc. Yeah.
So Jose, does Digital Globe not provide that?
I haven't seen that. They have.
Or is that just Planet?
I think they do it. Yeah, what's that?
Well, I mean, so there's also Planet, which is another, satellite provider, but that we're not hooked up to, so far as I know.
So they're
historical for sure.
What are we doing with the Landsat data? Which is, do we have the feed for Landsat data yet? Which is lower resolution, but it's daily.
Yeah. So the problem with that is that they need different protocols of communication, and we are working on extending our protocol of communication. The current one we have doesn't support time or dates, but we will have that very soon.
I see. So what do we think? So we think that the format of this will eventually be Geo Image of dated Andorra. Is that right?
We could have that. The general language will be in GeoServer. So the GeoServer that has many parameters, one of them will be the date. And But of course, we can also read from the input, the date, and then move that information to the GeoServer.
Well, we don't want our users to have to see anything about the communication with the GeoServer.
Exactly. But sometimes you need a very fine a very fine control of the communication, and then the GeoServer language is the way to go.
Right, but I think that doing a dated of whatever is...
Although I'm not sure that the data should go around Andorra. I mean, it should probably work, but if you have, say, Andorra and France with different dates...
Oh, that's crazy.
Agreed.
It could be perhaps inside geostyling, dated of satellite or dated of...
I was going to say that second argument for the map style or something.
I see what you're saying. So that you're instead saying something like, but I mean, it's a little bit weird when you're saying dated of automatic.
Yeah.
We could say dated of satellite, because automatic means
we
satellite.
could simply give a date here, and as a courtesy accuracy we
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what let's see. Someone was Michael Hale is asking, will there be parity between the satellite images from Geographics and Geo Image? Was recently animating a golf match, and the impression I had was that Geo Image had more detailed images. Okay, so what's the deal with that? Isn't it the case that Geographics with geostyling goes to satellite, with geostyling of satellite is the same as Geo Image?
It's the same. The only difference is that when the zoom is very high, Geo Image automatically switches to digital globe, while Geographics doesn't. But it's something that we have coded that way.
And the reason we did that is because we don't want people to, just suddenly end up getting a big bill for satellite imagery when they didn't think they were going to get it.
Exactly. So currently it's still free, but at some point this year it will.
Yeah, right. But so there's an argument based on, in particular, Michael's comments here on the live stream that we should be, if in fact Geographics is being asked to do something which should give you, where you could be getting higher resolution satellite imagery, arguably we should generate a message for that case. In other words, if we ended up with a situation like this in Geographics, but we don't need to, because you just have to tell it, yes, please go ahead and use the proper satellite imagery,
right?
Then we should generate a message for that case. In other words, if we have satellite imagery, but we're choosing not to use it, maybe we should generate a message.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, you can always say your server goes to digital globe.
No, I understand, but you have to tell people that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
So, I
that's
would
a good idea.
Something like, the message will be something like, by the way, we have a bunch of background noise here. The message will be something like using default low resolution satellite imagery use GeoServer Arrow, whatever it is, digital globe for higher resolution, blah, 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 for higher resolution stuff, right?
Yeah.
Someone on the live stream is asking, can I process shapefiles? I believe the answer to that, that's SHP, right? Is the
yes.
And we have pretty complete import of those things, to my knowledge. And those will simply, they will flow correctly onto all of this stuff, right? What we return from an import of a shapefile, what is that anyway? What are the elements that we return here?
So it's possible by default directly it returns a Geographics output.
Is it Geographics or is it graphics?
It used to be graphics and it's now Geographics.
Okay.
That by default. And but you can also ask for the individual elements like the vector elements of the input.
Yes.
And coordinates, projection.
Right. Okay. Well, that seems good. Actually, we have one more question on the live stream here. If the resolution is really bad, then it should generate a message. Agreed. If the resolution is okay but could still be improved, will that still generate a message? I think yes. I don't see. I mean, the question is how annoying this message is in the case where. Is it clear when you have? These are particular zoom levels, right? We're supporting to zoom level 11 or something. Is that correct?
It depends on the layer. So, for example, in StreetMap, we go up to 18.
Okay, for particular places like Manhattan or something.
No,
I see. We can always generate it up to 18, but we've cached it for places based on density of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it obvious what is there a zone in which it's kind of acceptable but could be better versus where it's really crummy? I mean, it depends on how many zoom levels you're off in terms of what we have available versus what.
For example, right now, the data in which we go to less zoom is geo-elevation data. So when we produce relief maps, sometimes it's very pixelated. And so there used to be a message saying like, for this area, we would need zoom 17, but we can only give 11 or something like that. But actually people complain that why giving that message?
All right. Well, so we have to look at this one. I mean, by the time it's as pixelated as that, it should be giving a message. The intermediate zone, it's not totally clear.
Right.
I mean, this is, okay, let's move on. Dynamic geographics. So, somebody is supporting the idea of Geo Image with respect to time. Yeah, it'll be good, particularly with the Landsat data, which is daily, right?
I don't know, but yes, there are servers of cloud covering imagery, which are very interesting. So.
Okay, so dynamic geographics. So we do not have a dynamic geo image because basically we don't want to be. I mean, that would require many tiles being downloaded all the time to go. I mean, beyond zoom level 11, which we already have on our servers, right? In other words, we could provide dynamic geo image to zoom level 11 without any problems.
Well, what do you think, Brett? So I think these are independent questions. It's a matter, I mean, the result is going to look very, very similar to dynamic geographics because it's just presenting the tiles, the image tiles there.
Well, so in other words, you're telling me if I use dynamic geographics, are you saying, how do I get a satellite image here?
Well, was it geo background goes to satellite? I mean, but you could try even geo server goes to digital globe.
Right, exactly.
Okay, and how much is it going to? Okay, well, let's try this. Oh wow. Okay, that's cool. So now if I go in here, why isn't that working?
Because by default, that's the highest level we have of zoom. You would have to go to digital globe.
So it's not switching to digital globe. It sort of maxed out at.
Okay, so if I say geo server here goes to digital globe, why doesn't that autocomplete? Growl. Can we make a note that should autocomplete?
Yeah, I'll make a note.
Okay.
There's
a lot of pinking there.
No, that's because it's complaining about that message from Cloud Connect, I think, is causing the pinking.
What was the message from? Well, there was some message.
Well, I mean, because you're in 12 and it did something with the public cloud, and so it did the version warning.
Wow. So this just works. That's pretty neat. So let's try to walk through the question of dynamic geographics. Why isn't there a dynamic geo image?
As I said, perhaps it's not needed.
Because you just do this, geo
Exactly.
background to satellite.
Exactly.
It's a little asymmetric, isn't it? I mean, a little, but I mean, I think we, to some extent, view dynamic, or not dynamic, geo image as sort of maybe not lower level, but its purpose is to get the background image for a region.
Yeah, I mean, its purpose is to give us something that can be used for image processing and things like that, rather than something that is going to be used as for cartography purposes.
Right.
Look, I think with dynamic geographics, I'm less comfortable de-experimentalizing that. Because I think we don't yet have the family of dynamic graphics functions and things. I think we should leave that as experimental.
Okay.
Also, I think the cloud support for dynamic geographics is still not there, is it?
No, I think John has perhaps an intern who's going to work on that this summer, if I
Okay.
remember correctly.
Okay. Okay. Well, so let's leave that as experimental. So Geo Image can be experimentalized. Dynamic Geographics stays experimental.
Got
Okay.
it.
And we're waiting on dynamic graphics and cloud support.
That is basically correct. And because dynamic graphics, I think, is going to inform how we think about. I mean, dynamic graphics. Are you actively working on that, Brett?
I mean, I haven't changed anything on it recently, so it's not terribly active. A lot of it inherits from Jose's recent work on Geo Image and Geographics, because it's calling a lot of the same internal functionality and whatnot.
Hey, why did this not work? I just tried to do a copy paste from Dynamic Geographics and it didn't work.
What did you have copied?
Well, I just was selecting the thing which has an orange border there, and I didn't copy.
I wonder if there's. I don't know. I mean, it's possible that there's something weird with the selection, because it wants to do its own event handling, so sorts of things.
Okay, looks like a bug. Is that
Okay.
a bug which is already in 11.3, or is that? Do we think that's a new 12 bug?
I don't think it's new.
I'll look into it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a comment which I don't completely understand from the live stream from Ali Hashmi. Can you keep capturing images from a dynamic geographics, as in, say, for 100 points and then close the stream? Oh, I see what you're saying. Like try to capture a movie effectively of dynamic geographics. I think I wouldn't do it that way. I would do that by doing geographics and just recording the just programmatically generating that sequence.
Or Geo Image.
Yes, Geo Image in this case. Right. Let's see. Better parity with dynamic image. Someone on the live stream is saying, but it does not fit into the purpose of dynamic Geo Image. So wait a minute. So the question is so that's a good question. Let's look up dynamic image and let's see how that agrees or doesn't agree with the design of dynamic geographics.
And the design, as I recall, is very different.
That's not great, is it? And this is, we just agreed recently to not de-experimentalize dynamic image. So put into your bin of what it will take to unexperimentalize dynamic geographics, there's understanding the relationship to dynamic image. So I mean, what we've got is dynamic graphics, dynamic geographics, dynamic image.
Yeah, I think that they're a little bit different use cases, but I think we can focus on that separately. Because one of the things that you want to do here is that you have, you want to measure things, but you might want to do that in geographics too.
Yes, you absolutely want to measure things. What is the measurement here? What do you mean by measure things here?
Let's see.
I mean, this is also a file-backed creature, whereas dynamic geographics is a virtual file-backed creature backed by data from a server.
Right.
Someone on our live stream is saying that copy paste works fine in 11.3, so it's just some bug in 12.
Okay.
Okay. Are we? Do we think we're done with the discussions for geographics right now?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look. Next item. So those who are here for the geographics business can leave, and the next item is persistence functions.
Okay, see ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Roman, you're on here.
Yes, I mean, they have these two value preprocessing function and merging function, which have had
Let's review what is experimental still with the persistent stuff. I mean, this is all the persistent value mechanism, right?
Yes, I mean, we have, I think there are two areas. One is persistence and the other is initialization. And I'm fairly confident of doing the persistent value, persistent object, making them no longer experimental, but I would like to keep the initialization stuff as experimental because we are not finished yet with how to initialize the kernel and initialize cloud kernels and stuff like that.
Okay, so persistent value, just to review here, what we're saying is these are values that can be made persistent across different kinds of persistence locations, and the persistence locations are being specified in the second argument. This is not wonderful that it doesn't give. Okay, so the persistence locations include kernel sessions, front-end sessions, cloud. Okay, so there are additional things to come here, right? In the persistence locations.
Yes, I mean that's the cookie and server-based things for cloud API calls and stuff like that. But for
so one
desktop
of them is web session, is that correct? Web session is another one. That's the name that we're giving to the additional. If I'm not mistaken, that's the name being given to the cookie.
If you open that thing persist location in the source form, then you will see all of that stuff. So
this list, what list? Where? What is that?
No, that's just a comment about, because this is used for generating auto-completion. So that's what this comment is about.
May I make a comment about documentation tagging? I mean, if we're going to, how is that being picked up by the autocompleter? Is there a tag?
I mean, it requires a manual one-time selection of this list and adding it to the autocomplete stuff.
Where is the autocomplete stuff? Is that in this documentation source file, or is that
somewhere in the notes or in the hidden stuff of this notebook? I mean,
do you know?
I don't understand it. I don't understand how it works, but I've been told to do it this way. And so whenever there's a change, you have to do something to this cell and make.
But what do you do to it? I mean,
there's a button in the Docker tools to extract that information somehow. Or the tables insert argument data.
Or is it being extracted somewhere? Does Roger or anybody else here know that?
It says there, notes tables insert argument data. So there's supposed to be a notes table somewhere in the Docker tools.
Yeah, I understand, but where's it inserting that data into?
Some hidden stuff inside this notebook. That's what I understand.
Weird. Okay, is Roger still here, and does Roger know the answer?
I'm here, but I don't know the answer to that. I haven't seen any problems with this. It hasn't really come up.
Okay, perhaps we could get who's, I don't know, we don't have anybody from project management here, do we? Maybe it would be good to get an answer to how that actually works. Maybe Brian could somebody could contact Brian and ask him to let us know.
Which Brian was that?
Van Vertlu.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the additional things, cookie managed. Oh, that was
cookie managed and server session. These are the two new ones that I'm working on, which are for cloud only, for API calls and stuff like that, and for cloud sessions.
Okay.
And yes.
Okay, and do you think that they will come to closure in the same way the other ones have, or are they going to require additional options and things?
They don't require additional options, but they really need support code in the cloud. So they are more tied to cloud release versions than to Wolfram Language release versions.
And do you have any idea when the cloud folk are going to support those things?
Well, I mean, it at the moment it depends on me, because I need to. Most of the support code should be ready, and as soon as I get around to continue working on cloud stuff, then I will be able to tell you exactly how much work there is. But at the moment, I don't have a local cloud development.
But I mean, is this something? It's not making it into 147, for example.
Is that the next released version?
Oh, well, 146 is the one for this week. 147 should be a couple of weeks from now.
No, that would be after that, I assume.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, let's take a look at these. I'm a little bit reluctant here to I feel like this whole system has not been as adequately banged on as we might like. The whole persistent values.
Yeah, I mean, there are several areas. I mean, the persistent value, persistent, yes?
Who uses it today and for what?
I mean, it has some internal use for caching certain things. And
it's used for once, isn't it?
yes, I mean, that's one use. And it's used in the kernel initialization, but that part is not stable enough.
But one point there is to preserve things across sessions, right? So
yeah, that's
yes.
Right.
So in principle, I mean, I don't think that we, in the various development teams, I don't think we've been particularly aware of this functionality.
I agree. It has not been well advertised.
Yes, I mean, one thing I intend to do, and I hope to do so for the European Developer Conference coming up in June, is to give an example of how to use this for storing preferences for a package or application.
Yes.
Because at the moment,
that should probably be a workflow, that particular issue.
Yes, I mean, it's more than a single workflow. I mean, it's not that trivial, but certainly it will be a couple of workflows. Because at the moment, I think we don't have a standard way of supporting preferences. Even our own preferences are, I mean, the front end stores them somewhere, but...
yes, well, those should be, look, we should standardize that stuff. I mean,
yes.
in other words, because we've got preferences now for example, between cloud and desktop, there's no reason you can't share a bunch of preferences. Like,
that's
I don't
right.
know what happens if you change your nickname or something in the cloud. I think it does change in the desktop, but how that works, I don't know.
Mm.
Do you know?
No, I don't. I mean, the way this works is that, I mean, if we use these persistent things for storing preferences, then the switch between cloud, desktop, or even merging and looking up different places will be straightforward.
No, I understand. All right, listen, I don't think we should de-experimentalize this stuff. I think we're not quite ready. I think we should try and finish the whole system.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, then we can just say that the whole thing will stay experimental and will gather more use cases and also advertises more internally.
I think so, but it wouldn't hurt to try to use it for some real...
yes.
Yes, I agree.
Our level of confidence will go way up.
Okay, so I think that's it for that. Somebody has got a loose connection on their audio. Let's move to the next and much bigger topic of system modeler.
Okay, then I'll leave here. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. See you, Roman. Okay. What is the state? Okay, so what the heck is this? What was this? This link doesn't. I don't even understand what these links are.
The first three are to guide pages, and I don't think the.
But this system, Raj, this was.
Sorry about that. I guess I didn't fix the links for the guide pages, but those are the guide pages.
Okay. But okay. Okay. Talking about this stuff in general. Well, let's go look. Let's go to a guide page. What's the main guide page here? Presumably it's under engineering. Where is it? Systems modeling. Right. Okay. So this whole business, where are we at with turning this into a repository system?
Okay, so that work is progressing, but that's not going to happen for 12. It's not on that timeline, but not too far ahead, behind that. But it's not.
But just to be clear, where we're going with that?
I think that we were not advocating de-experimentalizing this anyway, because we wanted to wait out that, and you need to be educated about galleries and other things.
I agree. We didn't have our summit meeting about galleries.
We did not. And I think that can, that can be a big, if we develop that well, I think that will do a great service to us for people exploring all the data that we have, the built-in knowledge.
No, I agree. So, I mean, just to clarify what we're talking about there. I mean, right now, we have the only way that you can browse the data repository is on the web. We don't have an in-product, in-notebook browsing capability. We only have searching capability for the repository. And what you're proposing is a general browsing capability for repositories, basically.
Well, but also a built-in data like polyhedron data could provide gallery views and pick from there. You know,
That's true.
There's a ton of that.
Right.
That provide probably. I'm sorry about that. That can provide a just much easier way to explore and understand and use our data.
Fair enough. Well, so I agree. So like element data could do the same thing.
Exactly.
But so what's the, I mean,
That doesn't, so there are two different things going on. I think that this mode of finding things when we search things, you know, on web and other repositories, we're going to build a similar thing we're building a similar thing for audio now.
What's the audio thing? It's going to be a repository of audio stuff?
No, we're calling into existing repositories. So for instance, SoundCloud for music and Freesound for sound effects and those kinds of things.
But just to understand there, what you're saying is, I mean, within the data repository, for example, there is an audio section of the data repository, isn't there?
There is, yeah, but it's tiny. You know, we're adding, but it's still there's no comparison with the millions of pieces that are available.
Right, but so one of the things that we have here is something where we've got a canonical name. Like if I go to audio here,
sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
These are audio cats and dogs, whatever. Okay, so that's a random. What is that? That's random meows and woofs and things.
That might be a recent thing that we added because we have audio identify.
Yes. There's some
coming up
with character encoding. Raj, that's for you, I think. That's a version 12 bug of some kind. Okay, so this is, I don't have my computer set. Okay, so what on earth is that? What is that?
That's the expanded interface.
I see. Okay, so then I can say, for example, that sub 3,1 probably, and that's that thing. And so I could say spectrogram, and I would get the cat spectrogram. Is that right?
For instance, yeah.
Is that really? What the heck does that sound like? Is that a purr or something?
Well, you are listening to it.
I'm not listening to it because I don't have my. I just changed some things here, so let me just see. Okay, I don't think I can play this through the computer in an easy way here. All right, let me just find out what this is.
Actually, I'm using that. You can play it so everybody can hear it to listen into this thing too.
How? You
set that up, that device. That's one of the devices that you can have.
Tell me how to do that.
Zoom is a device.
Okay, but so wait a minute. How do I actually do it? So if I say, is there $1 audio devices or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Audio output devices.
Yes.
Okay, Zoom audio device. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so what do I do? I say $. What do I do here?
Well, better said, it's as $. $.
Okay, then what do I set?
Hold on. No. I think you have to. Hold on a second.
Okay, this isn't highly relevant, but I am really curious what sound it is that looks like that. I don't know. It doesn't. Or is it a meow? I don't know. Or is it neither? Okay. Well, let me know if you figure that out. But okay. But the basic point here. I'm sorry, for the audio repository, you're saying that you want to have. So, Roger, are you aware of?
No, not for the audio repository. So the thing is that a search function to search, for a whole slew of audio repositories in the world.
I understand. So one thing that might be relevant to you, there is this concept of external identifier, which is what we're using. This is an Alan Joyce and me production. It's a thing for taking the canonical identifiers from things like Wikipedia and Wikidata or Protein Data Bank or whatever else, any place that has a canonical external identifier, and being able to map that onto, being able to reference things by their external identifiers.
That's
That
great.
makes sense.
There are a bunch of those across, every repository have them one way or another.
No, I understand that. But the point is to have a mechanism, a uniform mechanism for us to refer to external repository identifiers, so to speak. So that I think might be relevant to what you're talking about with getting data from SoundCloud and things like this.
Right.
Okay, but let's return here.
So anyways, back to the system modeler examples. We were not ready to sort of de-experimentalize that yet, because I think that these two other stages that needs to pass.
Okay, but what you are saying is that something like system model, so that's what this turns into, right? Is that thing is a system model, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that, if I plus it here,
You need to load the functionality by using one of the symbols.
that's not good enough. Come on. You surely should be able to capture the event and deal with that.
I'll look into that.
Okay. So if I just type the word system model, is it going to do it?
Yes.
By the way, whatever that was, is that a version 12 bug?
Yes, it's a fixed this morning bug.
Okay. By the way, I assume you're going to standardize on the monitoring, the loading indicators.
Whenever that gets actually standardized.
Who is dealing with that? I haven't heard anything from those of that meeting. We had a couple of meetings about that standardization, then I didn't hear any more about it. Does somebody know who's tracking that?
Sushma is product managing it.
Okay. Hey, Eric, could you check in with Sushma and find out what's happening with that?
Yes.
Thanks.
But yes,
okay.
then we'll use the standardized for everything.
Okay, so then your system model plot then just works on, whoops, whatever happened here. System model plot of that thing.
Yes.
Do you have the concept? Okay, so that's again a non-standardized.
Right.
Okay. By the way, are you considering some kind of attached cell mechanism for actions associated with these system models, or is that not
Yes.
relevant?
Yes.
Eventually.
Okay.
Just haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay, so let's take a look at what you're proposing here. So you're proposing to de-experimentalize system model and system model plot and so on. Is that correct?
Yes, most of the functions, not all of them.
So what do we think the kind of problematic areas are here? I mean,
they're a little bit different cases, but if we go through them linearly, oh, you mean in this function itself? Or?
Yeah, in this function, for instance. So what's the level of experience that people have had in using this?
I mean, it's the underlying stuff has been used externally by customers for many years now.
I'm aware, right?
So the underlying code base is pretty stable, and we didn't do huge design changes before putting it into Wolfram Language proper. So most of the stuff is actually well tested and has stood the tests of time, except in the cases where it didn't, where we changed it for this iteration. So I think the design we currently have is very good, and more importantly, extendable in many places. In the places we want it, we want to add stuff in the future.
Okay, so for example, if I were to say here, I see one of the properties, by the way, there's no autocomplete here. There should be autocomplete here.
Yes, it's also on my list.
I don't even understand this. This is some horrifying thing.
Yeah, it's the underlying code, basically. There is a Modelica display which gives you a highlighted.
What is the symbolic version? What is our symbolic version of this?
We don't have one.
Yeah,
That's a yeah.
It's a huge future project.
This is C++ sized.
Yeah.
So
Fair enough. I mean, and we don't particularly care because people are making these things using our graphical tools and system modeler primarily.
Yes.
Right.
So that's kind of a low level.
We can one day, but I don't see that. I mean, there are use cases, but they're not strong at this point.
Yeah. By the way, there's formatting.
I mean,
yeah. There's some kind of weird formatting issue there.
I'll file it.
I think the use cases for having a complete symbolic representation are strong, but not in comparison to the big effort it would take to actually do it.
What's that? Wait a minute. How do I get the variables associated with the system model out?
The system variables, I think.
Wow, what the heck's taking time here? Why did that take time?
Because it has to go from the non-compiled hierarchical structure to actually resolve everything. It's basically a compilation step.
So this thing here, what the heck is this?
It's a quantity variable.
And why is the input form taking forever? Okay. So those are quantity variables, which are unitless quantity variables. Is that correct?
In this case, they are unitless. If there would have been unit information on the other side in the model, they would not be unitless.
Okay, so if I were to say system model plot of this thing, actually, that thing, comma, and then a list. I don't know what the heck I'm doing here, but I'm just going to put some of these in, right?
Right. You might have caught internal variables there. Yeah. So the flattened version where you query for the variables can contain internal variables that you need to solve the equations, but are not present in the end result of a simulation. So if you took like the first three or some of the variables that did not contain $there, then that would have worked.
Okay, so hold on. So the convention is that dollar things are intermediate variables inside the system. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that is correct.
Let me just look at something here. Okay. So I don't quite understand. So system variables, how am I, properties related to the whole model are, where do I see system variables here?
If you scroll down, there are properties related to equations and variables.
Okay. So system variables, so I don't understand what this means. So this is not making it very clear. So output variables, is that the things I want for purposes of, those are the things that are relevant. There's only one?
Right.
Okay, but what about internal variables that are still being solved for?
Everything that does not contain the $dollar thing. So if you, so you can either go back to the system variables, or you can, if you do the system model simulate explicitly on your model first, then you get a result which you can query for the actual solved variables.
I don't quite understand that. Why do I need to, why isn't there something where it knows what will be the solved variables here? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Seems like you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, what on earth is going on there? Why is that not working? Those are not dollar variables.
Yeah, that should have worked.
Okay.
That surprised me.
Okay. All right, but so fundamentally, what should be happening here By the way, why is that name cameled? There, that filter with differentiation. Why is that cameled? Isn't there a non-cameled?
The original model was cameled.
I see. Okay. Okay. All right. So give me a sense then. So right now, the only way, so you have this way of browsing models here that is, what is that one? I mean, so that's particular.
That's not a good way to browse. It just gives you
the typesetting of that thing takes a while.
Yeah, that's.
Why are we not caching those?
We are.
So why does it take so long?
Because there's tons of dynamic. I mean, every typeset thing is a dynamic because of the expand collapse thing.
But I don't understand why the caching doesn't give you. I'm very confused by why caching doesn't make this much faster.
The caching is on the level of the rendered stuff. What I mean with that is the image, not the. I mean, in the end, the front end needs to render 400 something boxes with dynamic module and images in them.
This is not very good. Did you talk to the front end team about speeding this up?
No, not yet.
Okay, because this. Oh, I see. I didn't see that there were 411 missing things here. Yeah. Well. I think you need to talk about how to speed this up. And I don't know whether there's a way of giving an initialization for the dynamic module, which gives you a cache or something. I'm not sure how that should work. But clearly what I'm doing right now is definitely not working, and it's kind of frozen my front end here.
Right.
Okay.
I'll add it to my list.
Okay. So in terms of usage, in language usage of this, I mean, are we... these are just very, very complicated designs. And I understand that they're well tested in the external system modeler environment.
And much of this is well tested by external customers.
What's that?
The in-language design is also well tested by many customers. We know that we have many external customers using this.
Right, but they were using it in the previous form where it was not a built-in feature of the language. What did we change when we made it a built-in feature of the language? What kinds of things did we change here?
Well, all the names, but there was a lot of streamlining that we could do since we had experience with it.
Yes. Okay. I don't really like the phrasing of that. I hate using these things. I mean, that what does this even mean?
Now you're deep into how in a model you can store information about what system model plot should plot by default. That's what you get when you run system model plot. And there's basically an association format for specifying that.
Okay, look, I'm not quite sure how to do this review because it's a pretty big area. And what is the, we're still seeing some things here. What is this now? Why is this, and again, why is this so damn slow?
Because it has to render the diagram from the original model, because that the expanded form is not cached.
Okay, so look, this is clearly not a happy, the fact that this is taking so long is not a happy thing.
Yeah, and in this case, the reason it's took so long to render is probably because there's tons of you have gradients in there which are expensive because they use textures.
Okay, so and by the way, if I were to set one of these things up on an API, for example, where I want kind of, is that even vaguely possible, or am I going to end up with every single API call that's going to burn all this time setting everything up? In other words, is there some version of this where I can take some output simulated thing that will then be blindingly fast to run?
Yes, there is such a thing. And that's one of the things we want to do when we get cloud in the process of getting cloud support, is to have examples pre-compiled. So
right. By the way, why is that star there? That tells me that you're faking this. In other words, that's not the unit system that put that star there, is it?
I'm not so sure.
Really? Well, I mean, if I say,
I didn't think I was faking stuff there.
Okay, well, let's look. 2 Newton meters, right? Presumably.
Right.
That looks really weird.
That looks wrong from a different point of view.
Yeah, that looks very wrong from another point of view. Wow. Okay. I'm surprised we do that. I bet that's a case that's never really come up. Okay, but so if I were to plot, so let's say I make a table of quantity, let's say random real, Newton meters, 20. Why is this taking forever? Okay. It's a little weird, but that's okay. So let's say list plot that. Okay, what on earth happened here? That should have worked, right?
I would have expected it to at least show something. And why didn't quantity? Oh, you have the second array to the second argument to your quantity is actually a quantity value, not the quantity unit.
I know, but that should resolve, right? Quantity should ingest it, a quantity object like that correctly.
I have never used it that way. It's possible.
It's supposed to, I believe. I mean, again, Raj, maybe you can. That would probably be for Jose and so on. I think we probably have the wrong people to discuss this particular thing here, but let's see what happens if we say, yeah, I don't think we can do this. I mean, this is a really grotesque way to do it, which I don't think is going to work very well. But let's try that. I mean, this is something that works but shouldn't work. Okay, where are the units?
I don't think the plot shows units
by default, but it can do it.
Yes.
You say access label automatic.
What on earth is it doing there? Oh, I see. What on earth did it do there? Look at that case. Look at what it just did. That's a nasty bug, Raj. That's for you.
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably a version 12 issue.
Right. I'll look into that.
Okay, something is wrong here. Somebody is okay. First of all, that MN thing is wrong, and that's another thing we should take to Michael, I guess. Okay. Yes, someone on the live stream is pointing out that Newton meters is joules. I know. The second thing is you're faking something here.
I'm looking into it.
Okay. So, and the third thing, so let's take this as an example, which is a slightly more complicated example, line 28, and let's see if I can figure out. So you're saying if I say output variables here, those are the things that I can plot. Is that correct? Or can I plot more than just output variables?
You said I can plot more.
Okay. Why is this so slow? I just don't get it. What is it doing? Well, that's even more bizarre.
Yeah, that is bizarre because that would just work, didn't it? Or was...
It's a different model.
Oh, it's a different model. Might be a bug with
No,
the
it
model.
isn't. It's there, right?
Yeah, it's there, but you used
Yeah.
What do you,
previous example was
how do you validate these models? Is there some testing procedure for each model to check that it has what it's supposed to have?
We have tons of tests. And unfortunately, some of the models are failing.
Okay. But so, I mean, that's a pure QA. So wait. But these models come from the Modelica standard library, or these are, what's the story here?
This one comes from the Modelica standard library. Some of them come from our own example libraries.
Okay, but so let's say it's from the Modelica standard library and it fails our tests. What do we do then?
Depends how badly it fails. If it fails really badly, we remove them in our version.
And how many has that happened to? Roughly?
A few, a handful.
Okay, but so in a case like this, what would you expect? So I mean, if I say here, if I'm giving this model and I say, why is it even taking? Wow, it's even slow to paste. Something needs to be. You need to talk to the front end team, see what we can do here. Because I mean, look, it's not even typing properly here.
Right. I haven't experienced it that slow.
Well, it may not be helped by going through screen sharing and all that kind of stuff.
Right. If the output variables doesn't work, that's not going to work either.
Okay. Okay. So, and so these kinds of things like system variables and so on, if you have an attached cell, actually, you don't even have an auto suggestion cell, do you? What does the suggestions bar do underneath one of these things?
We don't have that yet.
Okay. But so when you have an attached cell, that will allow you to ask for things like variables and so on, correct?
Yes.
But it's an iterative process to make that really useful in attached cell. It takes many rounds to get it very useful.
No, I agree. What's the state of getting this stuff to run in the cloud?
We're working on it, but it's a hard problem.
Because of the sandboxing and things?
Right now,
yes,
a lot of sandboxing happening on in the system modeler kernel.
So I mean, I'm sorry, you're saying you're installing sandboxing there, or what?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I mean,
yeah, I mean, we basically have to install sandboxing protections in every single part of our infrastructure. Or
you can't just containerize the whole thing somehow?
Apparently, that's not doable, short term at least.
Because I mean, what you're doing is you're generating raw C code to run, correct?
Raw C++ code, yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's only one of the possible security problems.
What's an example of another one?
You can save models in wherever you want them, and you in the cloud you obviously only are allowed to save models in some places, for example.
I see.
And the system modeler kernel has a large list of interactive functions that this functionality calls, and some of them we have to block in cloud, and some of them we have to block partially in cloud. For example.
All right, look, this is yeah, we're fairly hosed here. I don't know what it's doing. Any idea what it's doing or how to stop it, or it's not even giving the dynamic content warning?
Just try stopping it with the alt period.
I did. It's not happy. Okay. Look, I mean, I have to say, I don't see the harm in leaving this stuff as experimental for another iteration. I mean, do you? I mean, it feels like there's still some shakedown to go through here.
Oh, I don't mind that either.
Yeah, I mean, I think the design is good, but yeah, we do have some problems like the ones you discover here.
So let's just talk about validating the design, because what we really need to make sure of is that this stuff can be in pipelines with other things. And what do we expect those things to be? I mean, in other words, it should be routinely the case that people can use, mechanical devices as, okay, like, let me give an example. Okay. Let's say you have a model for an appliance, like a washing machine or something. Okay, tell me if this is realistic. Can I run the model to predict the audio output from the washing machine? Is that realistic?
I mean, it is realistic if you build your model to have that much detail in that direction. I mean, you can have 100 different models of washing machines that model different aspects of the washing machine.
Right. But assuming we've got some vibration data coming out, how would we take that from here and turn it into an audio? Some kind of audio stream.
If you do system model simulate of your washing machine, you get the system model simulation data, which has an accessor for which outputs audio directly.
What do you mean it outputs audio directly?
It gives you an audio object for the variable you request. Yeah.
How do I? This is really upsetting. What's doing here? I'm going to have to kill this system. Yeah. Growl.
Just kill the kernel. Don't force quit the whole. Use the front end to kill the kernel.
If the front end, the front end is not responding anymore.
Oh.
Somebody's asking, does activity monitor or system process data? The problem is we can't get to system process data. And
activity monitor, yeah, you should be able to kill it.
The kernel, well, not that kernel task, our kernel task. Whichever one it is, this one here, maybe. Do I really want to do that? It says Wolfram desktop is not responding. I don't think killing the kernel task is going to be enough.
No, I don't think so either. Usually when the front end stops responding this hard, it's kill everything.
Okay, not great. Do you have any sense of why that happened here?
I would guess some interaction between the dynamic stuff and that there's a ton of bitmap textures in that image. So it's a heavy image.
Okay, so it sounds to me like you have some work to do with the front end team to try to understand how to optimize that stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so back to this for a minute. We were just talking about, you were telling me that System Model Simulate has a mechanism for giving audio output, which is entertaining. Is it specifically audio output? I mean,
I want to hedge my my statement by I'm not sure if we documented that particular form yet, but I hope so.
okay.
We have the implementation at least. So if you go to system model simulation data.
Well, so system models simulate.
Right.
Gives system model simulation data.
Yes.
And the reason it does that is because you get usually a ton of you can have 1,000 functions coming out of it.
Right, and it also has metadata about the simulation which you want to keep.
So if I say this, for example, system model simulate of that simple circuit.
Mm-hmm.
The heck?
Well, it's a version 12 problem of some kind.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem to be
packaging bug I fixed this morning. It won't influence you at all.
Okay. Okay, so now I've got the simulation data. Now what do I do to explore it?
It has properties.
Okay, and really there should be some kind of this suggestions. Do you know how to work with that framework or not?
I have been in contact with, I think it's, well, I don't remember his
Jose
name.
and Chris Carlson.
Yes, Jose. Yes, I've been in contact with Jose.
Okay, so what is this showing me here?
These are all the properties of the, this is basically all the metadata you have about the information, about the simulation.
Okay, so how do I get, so if I wanted to take %1 of a specific time, like 6.7, for example.
And then you need to specify what variable you want at 6.7.
Boy, this is a complicated business. Okay, so this is, what is variable? So it will be state variables or what?
Variable names or parameter names. The variable names are the interesting ones.
Oh boy. So then what do I want to do? I want to say, but I just want this as a function of time. I want to get the value of a particular variable as a function of time. How do I do that?
Yes, so then you do %1 bracket the variable name you want, comma t.
Okay, so resistor2.v, for example, and that's a quantity variable.
Actually, in this case, it's a string.
Why is it a string in some cases and a quantity variable in others?
I'm not sure we always have the quantity information at this stage, but I guess we could have it.
I think we need to decide what we're doing there.
Right. Yeah, it's.
Oh, that's nice. That's cool.
Yes.
So that's what we did originally, Stephen, because when we get interpolating functions, we get exactly the same workflows from other ways of solving differential equations.
That's nice. Okay, so wait a minute. So you're saying if I were to say here, if I were to just say %1 of resistor2.v, oops.
Yeah, then you get an interpolating function.
So that is, okay, so this thing is returning functions. This thing, when given the name of a variable, returns a function representing the results as a function of always of time. Because time is the only, I mean, we don't have PDE-like things.
No, this is time. This is they're ordinary or differential algebraic equations. So
right.
They evolve over time.
Right. Okay. Well, we still got a lot more to talk about with this. I just don't know quite how to organize the discussion about this stuff. I mean, it seems like you guys are progressing well with this. Is there stuff we should be talking about, or is it just chugging along?
I think it's chugging along, and there are whole points of synchronizing with other things. We talked about galleries, we talked about repositories, we talked about completions, we talk about other things that we didn't yet talk about, which is major uptick to some of the analysis functionality like linearization and other things.
Fair enough.
And there's cloud in progress. There are many things in progress.
Okay, I think we're out of time for this meeting. Actually, for those who are on the live stream, we're about to jump to another meeting, which will also be live streamed, but we'll start a different stream for that. Someone had asked about, actually the two questions from the live stream here. Somebody had asked about, they hoped we're going to get to neural net. Sorry, not today. Actually, the people involved in this are, several of them are traveling right now. This is going to be a long and painful discussion. This is about whether our whole neural net layer framework is ready to commit to for forever. And I'm quite unsure about that. Second, there was a comment on the live stream about the Newton meters problem. I think the answer to that is, how on earth are we going to solve it? The answer is, it's really a print form issue. It's not so much an issue of it's not so much an issue of actually putting those units in the right order. It's a question of how do we print out? Do we print out MN, which is looks like millinewtons, or do we print out NM? And I have no idea what that sorting criterion is. I'm sure Michael knows what the sorting criterion is. but something has goofed up in that regard, because I'm pretty sure Wolfram Alpha would sort that correctly. So there's some issue there. All right. Well, thanks everybody in this meeting. Thanks on the live stream. Those on the live stream, I strongly encourage you to come join our next live stream, which will be starting momentarily. All right. Talk to you all soon.